When walking with the elderly in Africa, it's not uncommon for you to hear a tale or two, or words of wisdom woven in proverbs so simple yet so complex. Until a lion has its own storyteller, the hunter will always have the best tale. And these are the words that I heard from 72-year-old Lion Tete as I was strolling with him along his village, along the fence, as we were talking on a very hot sunny day. The number of small game snares in the reserve was so very difficult to miss. And of course, our topic fast changed from conservation to poaching. As the heat of the day continued to intensify, so does Lion's voice that rings to his name. And he explained how the community makes money out of their cattle, and the same way that the reserves makes money out of their wildlife. Yet the reserve only looks after the animals in their area and do not care less or any much for the animals inside the community. But now that the park is starting to lose rhinos, they want the communities to start caring for those animals as well. This, unfortunately for Lion, is not a balanced relationship. And he argues that being a tourist in the reserve is much easier than being their neighbor. But what hurts Lion the most is that he fears or feels also that the reserves treats them as the enemies. When they wake up every morning and look at their children, what hurts them most is that the sons of the communities are labeling each other as rhinos and poachers and killing each other for mere rhinos. The reality is, in his community, the youth seem to fear poverty more than fear poaching. But for Lion Tete, joining criminal syndicates and going after rhinos and elephants is too high a price to pay, is another league for him. After thinking about Lion's story, I was reminded of a man that I once met in Mozambique, Robert Change. I met him deep in the savannah bush, living in a mud pole house with his 3 children and polite wife, all smiling from ear to ear. What struck me that day when I spoke to Robert was when he said to me, "A man would rather die on his feet than live on his knees." I asked him what's the reason for this. He explained that he was once a very successful banana poacher he was once a very successful banana farmer in his village. Until that day, until that very unfortunate day, when a tropical cyclone swept through their village and wiped away his entire plantation and his entire home. He remembers himself sitting in despair and shame as a man who's unable to provide for his family. While sitting on that day, his friends approached him and recruited him to go poach rhinos inside the reserve. That was very easy for him. It was a simple task when he considered the skills that he had gained from his childhood adventures. It was very low risk for him, so he imagined. Indeed, he went out and he hunted rhinos with his friends. Unfortunately, fortunately for him, after 3 successful kills, he felt resilient once again, and he felt invincible, and he tried once more. Unfortunately, he was arrested by a very skillful ranger. He spent 5 years in a prison, and when he came back, his then 6-year-old son couldn't recognize him. The pain and the shame that he felt as a father of a seed that could no longer recognize him was the biggest pain or the biggest price that he could ever pay. And he recommitted his life to protecting his community from criminal syndicates who are out there to go recruit more young men to be involved in this illegal activity. And of course, he also dedicated his life to protecting the wild animals as well, that he felt is the life that he is resetting for his children that he is raising. Unfortunately, we lost Robert to a marauding elephant that came rampaging through his village. But his legacy lives on as his wife continues to tell the tales of everything wonderful that he had done for his family and how he reformed his life and became a new living example for all the other young men in the village. Of course, widows and grieving mothers are also part of the story of the guns, boots, and carcasses, like Wisdom Matebula. She lost her husband earlier this year during a crossfire with poachers inside a park. I met Wisdom sitting in a big black pool of her morning dress, with her child clenched tightly in her hand, while trying to smile and capturing the tears from falling from her face. When Wisdom was sitting there, she was surrounded by a pile of cement and bricks for the half-built house that she and her husband were building. And when I was talking to her, I remember her as if it was yesterday. The dust was dancing in the August winds. And she spoke of him with such tenderness, explaining how sometimes, or repainting the pictures of the story that her husband once told her, of how sometimes they would sleep on the rocks at night, waiting for the poachers to come, sometimes in the dark or even in the rain. But it was his passion that allowed him to wake up every day and go protect the wild animals that he was protecting for his children to one day enjoy. And Wisdom lives every day with the courage, because life does move on, with the courage to tell the children of the hero father who paid the price with his life to protect our wildlife. And finally, Ruth Rushava. She's estimated to be about 100 years old, based on the stories that she shared with us, and we tried to place it in the timeline. She looked at me with wise telling eyes, and she said to me, "My dear child, wisdom doesn't only come with age, it comes from experience." I didn't understand at the time until she completed the entire story. And she said that when she came to the village, she came as a child bride to seal partnership between themselves and the neighboring village to fight against the war that was happening at the time. During her time, she bore 9 children, but unfortunately by the end of the Civil War in 1992, only 3 of her sons remained. Her sons were her passion, they were her pride, they were everything to her. And they lived each and every day to try and provide for their mother. She worked with pride, she had passion. However, her son knew no life without a gun in hand. She never wanted to ask where the money came from. Of course, her mother always knows. But she knew that what she feared most was uttering the truth of illegal money. And as she sat one warm summer day, as the golden glows of the sun was caressing her skin, the breeze came through with the coldest news that 3 of her sons have been killed in a foreign country. For Ruth, her biggest fear is her biggest pain is not being able to bury her children, or not even having the opportunity to apologize to them for loving herself more than she loves them. For Ruth, being an old age orphan is the biggest price a mother could ever pay, for not telling her children about the illegal activities that they are not supposed to be involved in. I am very lucky that within my job and the work that I do, I'm able to interact with both people and wildlife, many of which who have lived many different decades and generations and experienced many different things. And through the work that we are doing now in the KETA program, funded by the USAID Southern Africa, we are trying to amplify some of these stories to bring about positive change in communities. There are some stories that we are looking to transform as we are looking to rebuild the relationship between communities and protected areas. Thank you.